Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I want to talk to you about John Smith. John Smith is going to be our sample contact in ACT that I will be referring to on quite a, a regular basis. In my training, I think it's important that we can draw our attention to one contact with an easy to remember name that we can talk about so we can see some of the things that are going to happen with a particular contact. He's going to be sort of our guinea pig, our sample contact. So, having said that, we have a database now with more than 5,000 contacts in that database. And I want to talk to you about some of the fundamentals of working with a single individual contact. One of the first things you're going to do when you come into your ACT database is you're going to say, well, I got to find John Smith, so how do I do that? Now, the one thing about software I want to make you aware of is a lot of times there's more than one way to do everything. So what I tend to show you, at least initially, is the way I most often will look for things. So for example, if I want to look up John Smith in my database, I would go up on the menu bar and I'd click on Lookup. And just something about this menu bar and all these options. Below, in this course, we have tutorials on all these options up here. So I'll go over all of those in my training. But right now, I'm just going to click on Lookup, and I have some options here. Now again, this is the Lookup option, and I have additional training below that is going to be available to you on how to do lookups of information in ACT, contacts, and more. So all the things I'm touching upon, there will be more detailed tutorials below this. But for right now, I'm just going to look up last name. And when I do that, this box pops up, and you can bring this around the screen if you want to, but I'm going to type in the last name of Smith. So, if there was only one person in this database with the last name of Smith, what would happen is this would narrow down to just one contact, and I'd see a screen very similar. But because I know there's many people in this database with the name of Smith, when I do this initial lookup, it's going to return a list view. Now when I get into this list, I can take this list and I can resize it. I can move these columns just like in Microsoft Excel by putting my pointer on the little line in between and dragging left or right to move those things to make them a little bit wider. We can also make some of this stuff bigger, which I'll show you in another tutorial, just so it's a little easier on the eye. But right now, we have 62 contacts in here with the last name of Smith. So obviously, that wasn't a real easy way to look at this person up. I'm going to go back up to Lookup, and this time, I'm going to choose Contacts. And at this point, I'm going to type in John Smith. And when I type in John Smith and do OK, or click on OK, here's John Smith. And because John Smith was the only person in this database named John Smith, it didn't return a list view. It returned the view directly to the what is called the detail view. So now we have John Smith up on the screen. So what could we possibly want to do with John Smith as a contact? Well, one, probably the most important thing you're going to do, and again, I'm going to get into this in more detail in part 2 or course number 2 of my training, is we need to identify who John Smith is. Is John Smith a vendor? Are they a prospect? Are they a client? Are they a new lead? Who are they? And I'm going to show you how to use this field right here called the ID status to determine who John Smith is. So you can find people not only based on names, but based on the type of contact they are. So when we look at John Smith, we might just want to pick up the phone and call John Smith, or maybe we want to schedule a call. Now, up on my toolbar, we have these icons, call, meeting, and to do. All of these things look exactly the same when you go to schedule something. For example, if I click on call, this box is going to pop up. I'm going to click cancel. When I click on meeting, this box pops up. So they look identical. The only difference is under the activity type. In the first one it said call, and in this one it says meeting. And I'm going to click cancel. So if I wanted to schedule a phone call to John Smith, that's something I could do. I could go up and click on call, and I'm going to do that right now. This box pops up, and I can choose the date that I want to call John Smith. Let's say we want to call him on the 27th. If a time we want to put in, say it's 10 o'clock, what's the duration of that call? Well, by default right now it says 10 minutes, and all these defaults you can change. In the regarding field, I can just type in something like follow up, okay? And click OK, and now I've scheduled my phone call. On the Activities tab in Act, it will show me the call. So now we've scheduled a call. Well, maybe we also want to email John Smith. Well, if I come up here and click on email, if you've set this up properly, and I'll show you this in our Outlook class, you click on email and Microsoft Outlook will pop up and populate his email address already in Outlook. You can type an email. That email will be recorded back into Act on his contact, and you'll have a record of that going forward. So we could send John Smith an email. Also, we might say, you know what, we've done the email, we've scheduled the call. Now what we want to do is we want to make a note about John Smith. Maybe there's something we want to remember or something we want to make note of. If I come up and click on note, I can type in a note. And I'm just going to type in nice guy. Okay. And now we've just made a quick and simple note about John Smith. Okay. Histories and notes are very similar, but I'm going to show you the differences between those in our course number 2, so you learn how to use them a little bit different. If I want to see the note I wrote, I can come down to the Notes tab, and there's the note right there. So I've got a note. So now I've scheduled a call, I've created a note, I've sent an email. What else could we want to do with John Smith? Well, we might say, okay, let's navigate away from John Smith, but in the future we're going to want to know, okay, what's on our calendar? What do we have to do? And that's where the calendar comes into play. Down on the left-hand side, I'm going to click on Calendar, and this is our calendar in Act. We can put all of our schedule right in Act. I have different options in the view I want to see. Right now I'm seeing the day view, but I scheduled him for later in the week. So if I click on the work week, here is the call we've made to John Smith that we've scheduled. You can also see your calendar in a different way. You can see it in what's called a task list, and the task list is more of just that. It's just a list, and these are the things that are on my task list and also my calendar. It's just a different way of viewing them. We can see all dates for a specific day to see exactly what we have going on. So, task list, calendar, we see what we've scheduled, what's on the agenda. Let's go back to contacts over here on the left on our navigation bar. And when I do that, I come right back to John Smith. If I want to see the activity, what I've got scheduled, I can set it so that this pops up to remind me shortly before 10 o'clock on Friday when I have scheduled this. I can make a setting for that. Again, there are a lot of preferences in Act that you can change to fit the way you work and want to work. So we can have that pop up and remind us. Also, the last thing I want to discuss about this, and I'm just going to briefly touch upon it, and then I'm going to have another tutorial that describes this in more detail. It's something called GIGO. G-I-G-O. GIGO. Garbage in, garbage out. One of the key aspects or things you want to think about with Act is as you put information in, you've got to take information out. So in other words, when you schedule a call to John Smith, once that call is completed, you need to clear that call. And the reason you need to clear that call is because it creates a history or garbage. So you've put garbage in, scheduling the call. You take garbage out by clearing the call. Why is that so important? It's important because you want to do things so that you can find things later on. So one of the things about Act that you want to think about is not only is Act about things that have happened, but it's also about things that haven't happened. Sometimes you want to find things that have happened. Sometimes you want to find things that have not happened. So as you work through the contacts and work through my training, we're going to talk about that in more detail so you can fully understand this concept of working with contacts and why it's important to do certain things. So I just wanted to introduce you to John Smith, give you a little bit of insight into what maybe we're going to do with John Smith and how this starts all coming together. Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Tony Holowitz. Thank you very much. Have a great day.